Hey, welcome back. We have a knife here, and it is one that we are very excited to check out on this channel. It is the new Demco Nano Cub. This one has been an interesting, oh cool, got a little something extra in here from the Demco family. This one's been an interesting, I've been interested to see like what people's feedback is on this because and this came with a cool little bottle opener also, so we'll check that out. But a lot of people said that you know there were some questions about the pricing. So let's see what we think when we get it. Wow, look at that tiny little pocket clip. That's really cute compared to the regular pocket clip. That's like a fraction of the size of an 80-20.5, I should say, not the regular. That's the wrong term. And there it is. Oh, that is really nano, I have to say. So this is very reminiscent, having had one, of the 80-22, but much smaller. Let's do some size comparisons here to some of the others from the Demco lineup. So there's an 80-20.5. I should probably put this closer to the camera so you can really see the disparity there. And then let me see, where does my... boy, where is my Shark Cub? I don't have it right here, but I have another one, I think. Let me grab that really quickly because I think the Shark Cub is an important one to compare. Here we are. Oops. Sorry for the wait here. I should have these out and ready, but I got so excited to open this up that I didn't. So here is the Shark Cub to compare. So if you were to go in size, it would go this way. I guess we could probably do this slightly differently. And then we should include like an 80-20 full size, of course. Everyone's favorite Demco, because if you like Demcos, you like full size, right? And let's get into it. Let's see what we think. What are the details? First and foremost, one of the biggest differences of this and the Slicer Shark that jumped out right away as soon as I opened it. Wow, this is way thicker on the blade stock. Like this is almost like 80-20S or 80-20 size. I don't know what the blade stock number is exactly, but that's, I think, a 0.17. This looks like maybe like a 0.12 or something. I feel like this is bigger than the 20.5. Yeah, I mean, it's even thicker than the 20.5. So this is very cool. It makes even this small knife feel a little more of a handful, which is kind of cool. Very deep carry on the pocket clip. Gonna throw that in the pocket real quick here and see what I think, because I feel like a big piece of this is optimizing for pocket space. And yeah, that feels nice in there for multiple reasons. One being it's just so short. So comparing this to, you know, definitely a small knife here, the Shark Cub, wow, way shorter than the Shark Cub. So let's look at some stats. Let's pull out the scale, and let's pull out the tape measure. Very short, 2.125 on the blade. Overall length, 5.875 or so. Very, very small knife. So quite a small handle in particular. Demco normally does very long handles. So that's very unique to this from other ones that we've seen from Demco in the past. All right, working our way from the top. This is gonna be silly, but you got 7.6 ounces, 3.5 ounces, that's a Grivery. With the titanium, it weighs more. 2.72 ounces for the Shark Cub. Beautiful pocket carry knife there. 3.5. So that might surprise some of you, but this actually has, like the Demco 80-22, something very unique about it, which is that, look at that, no liners. So not sure, this aluminum doesn't have liners either, but like if you're familiar with the G10 in the Grivery on the 80-20.5, you've got steel liners in there, or tie liners, I can't remember, I think it's steel. Steel liners in there, and that does have a very different effect on multiple things. But look at the scale width as well. This is nice and thick. So this is very reminiscent of the 80-22. I wish I still had one. I actually sold mine. I had two of them, so I've sold both of them. But I wish I had one to show you, because I think it would be very enlightening. let me pull out one other knife here, which is the G10 version of the 80-20.5, because this G10, right? But look at that, you got liners. So very interesting. I wish I had my G10 Shark Cub over here. That'd be nice to see, because I can't recall if the G10 Shark Cub had liners or if it was a full slab like this. But that to me is a really interesting detail about the Demco knives, when they have liners or when they don't. And this does not have liners. Man, that thing is a stout little guy. You got 20 CV blade steel, super short. Beauty in the hand, frankly. Like, look at that. I mean, I have like a size XL, large, extra large hand. And that thing still fits in there. It's not quite as accommodating as the Shark Cub, which I always felt like was just wildly accommodating, especially since you have a choke up point, and you do not have a choke up point here. This thing is tight on the tolerances in terms of like the size. But man, look at the size difference there. This is a big difference in size. You're taking an inch plus off of this knife in terms of overall length. So you've got, we said 5.875 versus like 6.875 here. So a whole inch shorter than a Shark Cub, which is already considered by most to be a very compact, small knife. Very, very interesting to compare. And an 80-20.5, which for a long time, a lot of Demco purists thought was, you know, too small or whatever. Oh, it feels like a toy compared to my 80-20. This is a monster in terms of length by compared to this. This is extremely efficient, a very different profile of the handle. I personally don't like the feel of this handle in hand as much as I like their full contour design for the human hand. It looks like I grabbed a banana and squeezed it. I mean, it's just the perfect shape. They have really mastered what it feels like to grab something with a human hand. That's what I always say about Demcos. It's one of my favorite knives to use because it feels like it's made to be used. This one's interesting, and they do this on the 80-22 also. This sort of pocket here for the fingers, the two front fingers, and then on the back, it kind of pops up. And to me, that feels a little weird, having the back be so much taller than the front, because technically these are your bigger fingers up here. So you would want kind of more to grab, but you also don't want these to shift around. So that's partly about usage and partly about safety, but also partly about ergonomics. It does feel pretty darn good. Like, I don't have a big complaint about this design. It's definitely like my second favorite handle design. My number one is always just going to be something that has that contour that's designed for the human hand. I just love that feel. But a close second to that is anything that's just accommodating. It doesn't have to have a full contour, but it looks like it's meant to be gripped. And then I see so many knives that it's like, did they not like actually look at their audience and take a look at what their hands are designed like? But things like brown knives, they very much do. And they really feel great in hand. And those are the kind of knives that stay in my collection because I like using them. I even think of like the Benchmade Bug Out. A lot of people didn't love this, but in a G10, it's actually pretty robust on the handle and feels great in the hand to me. The Grivery version, I'm not the biggest fan of, but I do like the Mini. So, in conclusion, we have a very, very different and divergent knife from Demco here. You have a very thick blade, a very short blade, and a very short handle with a different type of grip that may not be for everyone. But quite a departure from their other designs. And I think the 80-22 prototypes were very compelling to a lot of folks because it was so different than anything else that we were seeing Demco do at the time. And I think this continues that. And there's actually a few other elements. Like if I really want to nerd out, the way that the Shark Lock, the way that this divot works is smaller than these other ones. So even versus the 80-20, the divot here is bigger. Did I say smaller? I meant bigger. And then the Shark Lock itself actually has a different angle. I prefer this angle myself. I really like this angle that they do on most of their flagship models. But this is the same one that I saw in the 80-22, where it's a little less steep on the ramp, a little more of a mountain looking and less of a peak like that. You can see how this kind of has this continuity with the ramp in there. it kind of looks like it finishes this sort of U shape. This is less so. This kind of goes up in more of like a, you know, a V shape or something like that. So it's different. It's not, for me, as comfortable. I actually feel a little less confident with this design. Now, let's talk about the rest of it. Let's get rid of these other knives. We're going to extend this one out a little bit. Sometimes on unboxings, I try and be 5, maybe 6 minutes. We're still going here because there's a lot to look at here because this is such a different knife from Demco. So, how the ergonomics when you actually need to use it, and what else, like, is it still reversible pocket clip? Yes, it still comes with a second pocket clip, which is great. Love that they do that. Not super easy. Like, I'm very choked up here to try and thumb flick this. Great on the rollout, no question. But man, this thing is small. So I feel like if I go to like thumb flick it, like I don't have a lot of knife here to grab to ensure that I actually get that. And if you're grabbing it like that, one of the problems sometimes with the shark lock is it can hit your hand and kind of stop it from deploying. So you kind of have to give it a little flick like that to actually successfully deploy it with the thumb. It's quite hard to deploy with the thumb from what I'm seeing. If I were to try and just keep my wrist completely strict while I do it, yeah, I don't know if I could do it, honestly. Reverse flick, beauty. Feels great for the reverse flick. So that's where I'd say most people prefer to do a rollout or a reverse flick, or probably the number 1 and number 2, followed by like a thumb flick is probably like a close number 2 to a reverse flick. But boy, if you're gonna do that thumb flick, you have to really kind of not just go in here, but maybe go up here to give yourself a little more room and really flip it out of there. So I'm starting to get it, but I think I have to just like be very, very intentional about how I do it. Looks like perfect centering. I've seen that with pretty much every Demco I've ever had. I don't remember a Demco where I didn't have good centering. One of the things I did notice on my 8022 was there was a little bit of an issue like with rubbing against the scale. And it does not look like this has that at all. So that's great to see. The Demco 8022 I had was a prototype. But man, those tolerances were really tight. Or I should say those clearances were really tight on the 8022. Now, if I go look up here, there is still a small liner for where the shark lock rides, which you kind of need some sort of small liner in there for where the shark lock is. So although you have a majority slab on there, you do still have like a little bit of a liner up here for where the shark lock runs, which is not surprising. Really like the jimping, but like the 22 also, this is a little bit of a sharper shark lock, so choking up on the knife's a little less comfortable, but should do really nice for draw cuts, unboxing, that kind of stuff. Not super slicey, right? This is a pretty thick blade. It does have a really nice little shape to it. Most of the like the 8022 and stuff do not have a swedge, so this has a nice little swedge on the front of the blade. Feels, you don't have a thumb stud, so that's interesting. Might be, if there was a thumb stud, it might be a little easier to get that thumb flick out there, but that's not there. And the ergonomics are good, but you know, with this pocket clip being where it is, it's not quite as good as here where they didn't do a full deep carry clip. And so this just fits in right nicely right there. On this guy with the deep carry clip, you do feel that bite in a little bit. It's not a lot. It's a pretty soft edge on there, but you feel it a little bit in your grip just naturally because it is a deep carry pocket clip. So, you know, worth noting. What else am I noticing? You do hit the big hardware, so that's cool. Almost everything I've shown here except for the 8020.5 has it, so you may not be aware, but a lot of their models that are lower end did not have this big hardware that you get on some of the nicer models they have out right now. And I think that's something that most people really like, is the bigger hardware. It's, you know, technically a little stronger and it looks better. You're not kind of putting that logo into the grivery like you are on these lower end. It just looks a little cheap, right? Whereas, you know, these two look very nice on the hardware. It's a nice logo. It's embedded in the hardware itself. And it's nice to see that on this one for sure. The lip on the pocket clip's a little different. It's generally going to work similarly to what you would see on some of these other ones. You can see this is just a thinner version of this guy essentially. but it is a different shape. So let me just give it a try in and out of the pocket a couple times here. Feels pretty intuitive. The knife is very tall, so when I go to put it in my pocket, I do get this jimping hitting against the corner of my pocket a bit. So that is, you know, something worth knowing if you're right-handed. If you're putting it in your left pocket, technically this goes to the back of the pocket, but you know, you have to kind of start it in the middle of your pocket and then work your way back to the back of the pocket so that this doesn't scrape against, you know, like basically when you're putting it into your pocket, into the corner of your pocket, this will scrape against it a little bit. So that's something worth noting from what I just felt there. It's just a bit of a different shape. It's very like squashed. I'm not used to a knife that's that kind of compact. The closest thing to this would probably be the Banter. That's probably the most comparable knife size-wise that I have in my collection. You have almost the exact same handle size. The Banter, a little easier, like quite a bit easier on the thumb flick. Not as easy, of course, putting it back down, or on the reverse flick. The reverse flick's not quite as good, but it's great, all things considered. I do really like the grip of this. It just feels intuitive and kind of natural to me. I do still feel this deep carry pocket clip like I do on the Demco, but that's probably the closest thing in my collection that would just be kind of a direct comparable. You get a bit more cutting edge on the Banter and, you know, a little more style points, I think, on the Demco here. So yeah, super interesting knife. Just a couple more size comparisons here in case you're not a big Demco person, you don't have some of those. Here is a CGRB Pyrite to compare. Here is a Spyderco Para 3 to compare. Benchmade Bug Out. Boom. Makes this thing look really small when your bug out's that much bigger than it. And how about a Oz Roosevelt to compare? So those are some size comparisons. Hopefully that's helpful for some of you that may be considering this as an option. And I think that's about it for now. Really excited. Thank you to the team at Demco for sending this. Sometimes I buy my Demcos and sometimes they send them to me to do reviews. But really interesting to see this in the lineup and see how unique this is, because I think it is very unique in the market. There's not a knife that's very similar to what we're seeing here. It has a little bit of that like Demco feel, but a little bit of like maybe like a Microtech feel or something like that as well to it. And, you know, versus my workhorse here, it definitely offers some interesting alternatives. I'm not like super inspired with that cutting edge to go put it to work. Like it doesn't tell me like, oh, I want to cut stuff. Like I do want it to be just like a touch longer or something like that when I think about actually using it. And looking at the handle, it's about as long as it could be. So they couldn't have really fit much more blade length in that probably than they did. So super interesting. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.